The storm rolled in with a force that rattled the small windows of James's home, turning what had been a quiet evening into a battle between man and nature. The wind howled like a wounded animal, and the rain fell in sheets so heavy it blurred the world outside into a smear of gray. James sat by the window with his chipped mug of coffee, staring out into the chaos, thinking of the kind of storms he had weathered in his life, storms not made of rain, but of loss and responsibility. Being a single father had never been in his plans, but life rarely cared for the tidy outlines people tried to draw. His daughter, Lily, sat curled up on the couch, her little feet tucked under her, crayons scattered across the low table in front of her. She hummed softly as she drew. A crooked rainbow arched across her page with two stick figures holding hands beneath it. James watched her for a moment, his heart softening. She was his anchor, the reason he got up every morning, the reason he pushed himself at a job where he was just one of many. Without her, he wasn't sure what he would have left. The wind screamed again, slamming against the house with such force that James thought for a moment the roof might lift. He sighed, rubbing his tired eyes, and glanced at the flickering light of the candle on the table. The power had already gone out once, he half expected it to vanish for good. He stood, stretching his back, when it came, the knock. At first, it was faint, almost lost in the storm. He frowned, turning his head toward the door. Then it came again, louder this time, urgent. Whoever it was, they weren't just stopping by for a friendly chat. His instincts tensed. Out here, in this kind of weather, no one should be walking the streets. "Daddy?" Lily asked, looking up with wide eyes. "Who's that?" "I don't know, sweetheart," he murmured, setting his coffee down. His mind raced. Could it be a neighbor in trouble? A lost traveler? He crossed the room quickly, his socked feet silent on the worn wooden floor. The knocking grew more frantic. He unlatched the door, bracing himself against the wind, and pulled it open. For a moment, he simply stared, because the sight before him didn't make sense. Standing in the downpour, shivering and drenched, was Claire Weston, the CEO of the company where James worked. He recognized her instantly. Everyone at the office knew her. She was the kind of woman people whispered about in the halls, a figure who commanded both respect and intimidation. She was polished, untouchable, with the kind of power that people only dreamed of. But now, she was anything but untouchable. Her usually perfect hair clung to her face, plastered by the rain. Her coat, probably worth more than James's monthly rent, was soaked through, hanging heavily from her slender frame. Her lips trembled as she clutched the hand of a boy who looked about Lily's age. The boy's small face was pale, his teeth chattering, his sneakers squishing with every step as he shifted nervously at her side. "Mr. Miller," she gasped, her voice hoarse from the wind. My car broke down just a mile back. I couldn't get service on my phone. We tried walking, but it's worse than I thought out here. Please." She tightened her grip on her son's hand. "Can we shelter here, just until the storm eases?" James blinked, caught between disbelief and urgency. His CEO, on his porch, asking for help. For one suspended second, he thought maybe he was dreaming, maybe the storm had lulled him into some strange fevered vision. But the cold gust that tore through the doorway made it real enough. He looked at the boy again, at his soaked clothes, at his tiny shoulders shaking. That decided it. Titles didn't matter. Power didn't matter. Humanity mattered. "Come inside, quickly," James said, pulling the door wider. Claire hurried in, ushering her son before her. The moment the door shut, the howling of the storm was muffled, replaced by the sound of dripping water as it pooled on the rug beneath their feet. Lily stood frozen on the couch, her crayon hovering above her page, staring wide-eyed at the two strangers who had just entered her safe little world. Claire offered a faint, breathless smile, though her body still shook with cold. "Thank you. I know this is unusual." James moved quickly, grabbing two towels from the hallway closet and thrusting one toward her. She took it with gratitude, pressing it against her face, while James crouched in front of the boy, wrapping him in the other. "What's your name, buddy?" James asked gently. "Michael," the boy whispered, his voice trembling as much as his body. "Well, Michael, you're safe now," James assured him, tugging the towel tighter around his small shoulders. Lily slipped off the couch, her bare feet padding toward them. She peeked from behind James, eyes big and curious. "Daddy, who are they?" she whispered. James looked down at her. "This is Ms. Weston and her son, Michael. They're going to stay with us until the storm passes." Lily tilted her head, studying them as though trying to piece together a puzzle. Then she smiled shyly at Michael. "Do you like drawing? I have lots of colors." Michael glanced up at his mother, who gave a small nod, and then back at Lily. His lips twitched into the tiniest smile. "I guess." "Good," Lily said, grabbing his hand and tugging him toward the couch. "Come on." Within moments, the two children were cross-legged on the floor, crayons scattered like confetti between them. Their laughter, hesitant at first, slowly grew louder as they compared drawings, each distraction pulling them further away from the frightening storm outside. Claire sank onto the edge of the couch, her shoulders slumping under the blanket. Her polished composure was cracking, exhaustion etched across her face. James, watching her, realized this was the first time he had ever seen her look human, fragile, uncertain, almost ordinary. He handed her a mug of water. "Thank you," she murmured again, her voice quieter now. "For letting us in. I didn't know what else to do." James shrugged, lowering himself into the chair opposite her. "A storm doesn't care who you are or what you do. You needed help. That's all that matters." And in that simple exchange, something shifted. The gap between CEO and employee, between worlds so far apart, seemed to close just a little. Neither of them knew it yet, but the storm outside had brought them into the eye of a different kind of storm. One that would challenge everything they thought they knew about themselves and each other. The storm continued its relentless assault on the world outside, hammering against the roof with a fury that seemed endless. Inside James's modest home, however, the atmosphere was changing. What had begun as fear and desperation was slowly transforming into something warmer, something softer, like a fragile cocoon against the chaos of the night. James had managed to get the fireplace going, the flames crackling cheerfully as they filled the small living room with a golden glow. The children, seated on the rug before it, were bent over their drawings, their heads close together as they compared colors. Lily's laughter rang out, a clear, innocent sound that cut through the gloom. Michael, at first hesitant and withdrawn, was now leaning into the moment, his cheeks flushed not just from the fire but from joy he hadn't expected to find in such a place. Claire sat curled up in the armchair, one of James's blankets wrapped tightly around her. She looked nothing like the formidable woman James had seen in boardrooms. Gone was the sharp, commanding presence. In its place sat a mother, vulnerable and tired, clinging to the small comforts she had left. She watched her son with a tenderness that softened her entire face. For the first time in a long while, James thought she looked approachable. He sat across from her, resting his elbows on his knees, his eyes flicking between the children and the woman who, in a strange twist of fate, was now his guest. "He's a good kid," James said quietly, nodding toward Michael. "Smart, too." Claire exhaled slowly, brushing damp strands of hair from her face. "He is. But it's been hard since the divorce. He doesn't say it, but I can see it. He's quieter, more closed off. I try to give him everything, but sometimes I wonder if that's enough." James studied her carefully. Her words carried a weight, the kind that only someone who understood could truly hear. And he did understand, better than she could imagine. "I know the feeling," James replied. His voice was low, thoughtful. "Lily lost her mom when she was 3. Every day I wonder if I'm doing this right. If I can give her what she needs. If my love is enough to fill the spaces someone else should have filled." Claire's eyes lifted to his, surprise flickering across them. In that moment, she saw not just an employee, not just another face at the office, but a man shaped by struggles similar to her own. Their worlds were different. Hers full of board meetings and private drivers, his filled with school pickups and late-night overtime, but the core of their battles was the same. They were both parents trying to protect their children from the storms of life. The fire crackled, filling the silence that followed. Outside, thunder growled like a warning, but inside, something gentler stirred. The unspoken bond of shared struggle, of loneliness hidden behind strong facades, hung between them. Claire shifted in her seat, her fingers tightening around the blanket. "You ever feel like you're failing?" she asked quietly. James gave a half smile, one that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Every single day." And just like that, she laughed. Not the sharp, polite laugh of a CEO, but a genuine laugh that slipped free despite the storm, despite her exhaustion. It surprised her as much as it surprised him. For the first time that night, she allowed herself to relax, even if just for a breath. The children, oblivious to the adult conversation, were now building little houses out of crayons, pretending they were castles. Michael grinned, his earlier fear forgotten, and Lily clapped her hands in delight at their creation. The sound filled the room, making the storm seem farther away. Claire leaned back, watching them, her expression softening. He hasn't laughed like that in weeks, she admitted, her voice almost a whisper. James followed her gaze, and for a moment, the sight of the two children playing together filled him with a quiet sense of peace. Perhaps it was the storm, perhaps it was the fire, but something about this night felt significant, like a turning point neither of them had expected. "You're doing better than you think," James said suddenly, his eyes still on Michael. "Sometimes, just being there is enough." Claire turned her head, studying him. In the firelight, his face looked older than his years, etched with fatigue and resilience. He wasn't the kind of man who sought attention, she realized. He wasn't polished or perfectly dressed. But there was a steadiness in him, a strength that wasn't loud but undeniable. For the first time in a long time, Claire Weston felt seen, not as a CEO, not as a woman expected to be invincible, but as a mother, as a person simply trying her best. And that, she realized, was something she hadn't allowed herself to feel in years. The storm continued to rage, but inside the small house, a new story was beginning, one of shared burdens, unexpected connections, and the faintest spark of something that might grow into more than either of them could have imagined.